The girl was trapped in a phone booth in her dream. A masked man suddenly approached, smashed the doors and windows, and strangled her with the phone cord. The injuries she got in the dream showed up in real life right away. If she didn't wake up soon, she would die in the dream forever.
Gwen, come on, you gotta wake up!
Gwen, we need help.
Gwen, if you can hear me, you have to fight back! Gwen, fight back!
In the next second, the whole phone booth exploded, and the masked man fell to the ground. He turned out to be the most notorious serial killer in the country. 4 years ago, in 1978, 5 kids went missing in a row in that small town in Colorado, USA. Finney, a 13-year-old boy from the town, killed the kidnapper and escaped successfully, becoming the only survivor of the grabber incidents. But 4 years passed, the 17-year-old Finney still couldn't shake the trauma of the kidnapping. The phantom of the grabber never disappeared. Finney had to continue living while hiding it from everyone. As for his younger sister Gwen, she also couldn't escape the nightmares. She frequently dreamed of a little boy in yellow clothes who went to a winter camp at Alpine Lake with his family, but was followed by the grabber one late night, which was followed by a brutal murder. The bloodied boy in yellow left the letter W on the ice, and then sank into the bottomless lake. Gwen woke up from the dream in an instant, hearing the phone ring in the living room. She quickly got up and walked outside. The empty street showed an ominous atmosphere. Luckily, Finney noticed his sister's abnormality in time, and pulled the freezing cold Gwen into the house. Somehow, Gwen's sleepwalking had gotten worse and worse. She really wanted to talk to her brother about her nightmares, but Finney always found all kinds of excuses to avoid it. There were no reliable friends at school either. The other kids her age saw Gwen as a freak, and secretly called her a witch behind her back. Only Ernie ignored the gossip and remained close to Gwen as always. He bought tickets to Duran and invited her to go with him, and even brought Gwen a set of something similar to tarot cards. Ernie didn't mind at all that she liked these odd things, and even tentatively asked Gwen, "Have you been dreaming of something strange lately?" It turned out that Ernie had heard the news from his father, the sheriff. Someone made an anonymous call to the police station, saying they dreamed of where Robin's body was. He immediately guessed that the caller was Gwen, so he wanted her to know that she could talk to him about any troubles. The nightmares about the winter camp continued. That night, Gwen dreamed of the second victim again, just like the boy in yellow before him. He left the second letter B, before sinking to the bottom of the lake. After waking up, Gwen heard the phone ring as usual. She quickly walked out of the room, only to see a mutilated body lying in the yard. Thick blood soaked through Gwen's socks. For some reason, she quickly got on her bike and rode to the place where the grabber had imprisoned the children 4 years earlier. The black phone on the wall was ringing.
Who's this?
Hope Adler?
Where are you calling from?
Alpine Lake?
From their conversation, it was learned that Alpine Lake was a youth camp in the mountains, and a girl named Hope got this phone number in a dream. She dreamed that 7 numbers were carved on the ice. It seemed that the two had dreamed of the same group of boys, except Hope dreamed of numbers, while Gwen dreamed of letters. Just as they were about to find out more information, Hope suddenly lost signal. In the next second, a man stood behind her and said eerily, "You shouldn't be here." Then the door opened, and familiar footsteps approached. The phone rang again. Gwen was woken up by Finney behind her. She couldn't believe she had sleepwalked this far. Things were getting more and more weird. Gwen told her brother, "I just got a call, and it sounded like Mom." Finney frowned when he heard this. "What nonsense are you talking about? Mom has been dead for a long time." But Gwen knew she hadn't misheard. Although Hope's voice on the phone was childish, it was clearly Mom's voice. She believed this dream was definitely not a coincidence, so she wanted to go to that Christian youth camp. Coincidentally, they were hiring intern counselors there, and their father had been urging Finney to find a job. They had a legitimate reason to go there to investigate. As they were talking, their father heard them and walked over. He picked up the winter camp brochure and looked at it, saying, "Your mother also worked here, but the old camp was closed 58 years ago." All signs showed that his sister's dreams weren't a coincidence, so in the end, Finney was convinced, packed his things and prepared to go to the camp with Gwen. The kind-hearted Ernie volunteered to drive. It snowed non-stop along the way, and the road became more and more invisible the further they went. One wrong move could send them plunging off a cliff. Finney simply got out of the car to lead the way. Luckily, they met someone from the camp not long after. She led Ernie, who was driving, to the destination on horseback. the person in charge, Mando, apologized and explained that the road wouldn't be cleared until the blizzard passed, so the winter camp had been cancelled. Ernie and the others had left too early to receive the notice. Now, besides the logistics staff, only Gwen and the other two were there. Trapped by the heavy snow, they had no choice but to stay. Finney noticed a phone booth nearby. Could this be where Mom had made the call? Because state law explicitly required minors of opposite sexes to be housed separately. Gwen stayed alone in the girls' dormitory. After she fell asleep, she started dreaming again. The third victim appeared in her dream tonight, who carved the letter H on the ice. Luckily, this time the dormitory was far enough from the phone booth. Gwen didn't hear the ring, but Finney, who was smoking outside, did. After hesitating for a moment, he walked over and picked up the receiver.
I'm sorry, but I can't help you.
The ringtone behind him kept ringing. Finney gritted his teeth and rushed over to answer it again. Unexpectedly, the voice of the grabber came from the phone. The door of the phone booth was also jammed shut. No matter how hard Finney slammed it, he couldn't open it. Just then, the receiver suddenly fell to the ground.
Hell is not flames, Finney. It's ice. Nothing burns like the cold.
At the same time, Gwen, who had woken up, couldn't fall asleep, nervously checking if there was anything under the bed. After checking her own bed, she went to check the opposite one, and unexpectedly saw that boy in yellow. Gwen sat up in shock, but then the second victim boy appeared from the upper bunk behind her, their faces covered in blood. They approached step by step. As Gwen kept retreating, the third boy appeared. He pulled open the window frozen shut by the snowstorm. An adult walked up behind him and crushed the window frame with his bare hands. The window glass shattered and cut off half of the boy's face. Gwen let out a heart-wrenching scream. When Finney heard it, he rushed into the girls' dormitory and comforted his sister, who was trapped in the nightmare. Gwen couldn't stay here alone no matter what, so she went to the boys' dormitory with her brother. She told Ernie she'd had another nightmare. The boy patted the single bed and told Gwen to lie on one side. The two chatted. The sweetness of love made Gwen temporarily forget her fear. Unluckily, her brother suddenly spoke up and interrupted them. I'm not invisible, you know. Can't you two pick the right time and place for romance? Gwen and Finney had no choice but to stop. But none of the three noticed that the ice on the window was slowly melting. This only happens when someone is close by. The next day, Gwen rolled up her sleeves and found red scratch marks still left on her arms. They were left by those ghostly boys last night. Before Finney could say anything, the loud-spoken Mando called them to breakfast. News reports said this was the worst blizzard since 1946. The whole city of Denver had been closed off. At best, it would be 2 or 3 days before it reopened. At the camp, besides Mando and his niece Mustang, there were also Kenneth and Barbara in charge of the office. All other logistics staff had left before the road was closed. Mando had noticed Gwen going to the boys' dormitory last night, so he reminded her not to do it again. If we get caught, it could get us all our camp license revoked. Then he asked the three why they had come here. From your resumes, you have no experience as counselors and didn't list a regular church. Ordinarily, you wouldn't be interested in this job. Finney and the others had to confess, our mother used to work here as a counselor. Her name was Hope Adler. She passed away 7 years ago. Gwen wanted to know if Mando had any memories of her mother, so she took out a photo of Hope and showed it to him. Memories immediately came flooding back. Mando asked with a look of regret, how did Hope die? Finney honestly replied, she committed suicide. The atmosphere turned awkward for a moment. That's when Mando remembered to tell the three to go to the office to call their family. Don't keep them worried.
Wait, what about the outside payphone?
That thing is deader than disco. Hasn't worked in over a decade.
After Mando left, Finney told the other two that the broken public phone had rung last night. He was certain the caller was the grabber. Just then, the phone booth rang again. Finney told Gwen to go call their dad, to let him know they were safe first. He would go to the phone booth to confront the grabber alone. Unexpectedly, a child's voice came from the other end. He had forgotten his name and didn't know where he was. He only said there were 3 people there. They felt so cold. In the next second, the 3 boys from Gwen's dreams appeared beside the phone booth, begging Finney to save them. Gwen had already called her dad to let him know she was safe. She asked Kenneth if he had any historical records about Alpine Lake. Barbara replied rudely, "We're a youth camp, not a historical society." She had obviously found out that Gwen had stayed in the boys' dormitory overnight, and mistakenly thought Gwen was an immoral girl. Ernie kept pressing, asking if any children had been killed at the camp in the past. Barbara got even more agitated, saying, "This is a Christian organization. We don't talk about things like that." The more she defended herself, the more it proved there was something fishy going on. Night fell soon after, and a new nightmare began. Gwen saw her young mother standing in the phone booth, making a call. From the conversation, it was similar to the one Finney had received. The caller kept saying he was so cold, that it was dark and cold there. As soon as the words fell, the boy in yellow appeared. Gwen chased him into the woods, only to see blood-stained goose feathers flying all over the sky. The tattered yellow-down jacket lay on the ground. The second boy appeared next, leading Gwen to a tree stump. Scarlet blood snaked down the stump. Then Gwen was woken up by a crashing sound. It was the gate slamming shut in the wind. A familiar figure stood at the door. Gwen mustered up her courage and walked over. Seeing the third boy, she followed him to the cafeteria. At the same time, the phone booth rang. Finney got up immediately. He woke Ernie up, told him to keep an eye on Gwen, and then ran to the phone booth. Gwen, not far away, happened to see her brother and Ernie, but still gritted her teeth and followed the boy. The dark cafeteria was empty. In the next second, the lights in the back kitchen turned on. Gwen walked in cautiously. On the other side, Ernie found the girls' dormitory empty, so he searched the whole camp for Gwen, waking Mando up in the process. At this point, flames erupted from the oven in the back kitchen. Mando and the others rushed over as soon as they heard the noise. At the same time, Finney questioned the grabber about what he really wanted. What else could he want? Obviously, revenge.
You made me kill my brother, and then you killed me! So now I'm going to destroy you, Finney.
It was clear that the grabber was going to target Gwen. He raised his axe and struck the girl down. The sharp axe blade was about to slash at Gwen's face. In the nick of time, Mando and the others finally arrived. But they couldn't see the grabber. They could only watch as Gwen flew up out of nowhere and slammed into the door panel on one side. Finney heard screams coming from the cafeteria, quickly hung up the phone, and ran over to check. At this point, Gwen was being tormented by the grabber. The others froze in place, too scared to move. Seeing that Gwen was about to be stuffed into the oven, Finney finally snapped to his senses and grabbed her legs. The others were about to go over to help. Unexpectedly, the pots and pans on the cabinet came flying like hidden weapons. Everyone scattered, covering their heads, with no time to worry about Gwen. But when the grabber saw Finney rushing in, he actually let go of Gwen. The weird smile on his mask sent chills down everyone's spines. Then he slowly disappeared into the darkness. It took Gwen a long time to recover. The scene really terrified the Christians at the camp. Gwen explained her dreams to everyone. These dreams can sometimes predict the future, and sometimes they're the dead trying to show me what happened in the past. For example, those three boys are the camp's former missing children. So as soon as Mando heard Gwen's description, he knew the boy in the yellow down jacket was Felix, the tallest one in the white down jacket was named Spike, and the third boy in the denim jacket, whose whole body was burned, was Calvin. Besides the camp's two former owners, and a few policemen from back then, no one knew the details of Calvin's murder, so Mando knew Gwen wasn't lying. She had really seen these boys in her dreams. At this point, Barbara couldn't help but interject, "Then what about what happened in the kitchen? Could it be that Gwen is possessed by a demon?" Then Finney asking them if they knew about the grabber. Mando had heard that the grabber had killed many children, but he was killed by one of the children when they escaped. Finney said, "I'm the one who killed the grabber. A few weeks ago, my sister received a call from our mom at the camp in her dream. That's why we came here to investigate. The one who attacked Gwen in the kitchen wasn't a demon, but the same the grabber from 4 years ago." Upon hearing this, Mando took a group photo down from the wall. "Back then, I was just the camp's cook, and your mom Hope was in the photo too. After the former owner Harlan closed this place, Mando still came back often, wandering around nearby, trying to find the missing children, but unluckily, he never found anything. Later, Harlan passed away. Mando bought the camp at a low price in a real estate auction, and reopened it. He had promised the three boys' parents that He would never stop looking for the missing children, so for 4 years, no matter rain or shine, Mando would circle around the camp. Now he believed God had sent Gwen to guide everyone, to find the missing children's bodies, to let them rest in peace. As soon as he finished speaking, Finney suddenly noticed that the grabber was also in that group photo. Mando leaned over and said, "Isn't that Bill?" He did maintenance work at the camp. We all called him Wild Bill, because he shared the same name as the movie star Wild Bill Hickok. Gwen suddenly realized the star's initials were WBH, the same as the letters the three boys had carved on the ice. It seemed these boys were Bill's first victims, the start of his path to becoming a serial killer. Ever since Finney killed Bill in 1978, strange things had been happening at the camp. His soul probably had gone back here after death, constantly feeding on the victim's fear. Now, only by finding the three boys and letting the dead rest in peace, could Bill's soul be completely destroyed. But how to find the three victims? Based on her dreams, Gwen guessed the boys' bodies were underwater. The camp staff couldn't help but recall that the lake had been frozen when the disappearances happened, so the police hadn't searched under the ice, which meant the bodies were most likely hidden in the water. And nearby, there was Maru Lake, where camp staff went ice fishing. Everyone kept a lot of ice-breaking tools there. Maru Lake was the only place where Bill could have chiseled a hole and dumped the bodies. There was no time to waste. Mando decided to act at dawn. Late at night, unable to sleep, he flipped through old files in the office. At this point, the radio equipment beside him suddenly turned on.
What you made me do. You made me kill my brother.
Mando guessed it was Bill's voice, and immediately picked up the microphone to warn him, "You can't keep those boys trapped forever." But the other side kept repeating, "I'm not Bill." In the next second, the office went dark. Mando hurried to find a flashlight in the drawer. A snowman's head slammed into the window, with red blood oozing from where its eyes should be. But Mando wasn't a young child. He wasn't afraid of these ghostly tricks. After a while, the strange phenomena disappeared as expected. The sun came up an hour later. Mando drove the snowplow to Maru Lake. Everyone searched through the ice all day but found nothing. As night fell, it was time for Gwen to sleep. Finney and the others were worried, so they planned to take turns watching over her and wake her up as soon as she started dreaming. Gwen couldn't help but ask, "What if I can't wake up?" Upon hearing this, Finney told his sister, "This is your dream. You're the one in control." Comforted by her brother, Gwen slowly fell asleep. But this time, the dream was different. A boy in a red jacket was delivering newspapers everywhere, with a large golden retriever. Only the bicycle was left on the ground. The boy in the red jacket was kidnapped by a black car. The driver wore a top hat and acted strangely. He seemed to be the young Bill. He stood in the yard laughing wildly. Hope suddenly woke up from the nightmare. Gwen didn't understand why she was dreaming about her mom. Just as she was about to get up, Ernie held her down again. She had to go back to the dream, watching her mom pick up clothes and sneak away quietly. Her younger self and brother were sound asleep in the next room. Hope arrived outside the house from her dream. She could tell this was Bill's house from the black car in the garage. Hope approached the house cautiously and looked into the basement through the window. The boy in the red jacket was lying on the bed. Hope was shocked and was about to run back to her car, but Bill suddenly grabbed her and stuffed her into the black car. Gwen wanted to scream for help, but she couldn't make a sound in the dream. At this point, Bill, dressed as the grabber, got out of the car and gestured for Gwen to come in. He called the girl into the car, while Hope lay unconscious on the ground.
My mom dreamed about Billy Showalter, the paper boy. He was the first kid taken in our area.
It turned out that Gwen's ability to have precognitive dreams was inherited from her mother. Hope hadn't committed suicide back then. She was brutally killed for finding out Bill's secret. Now Bill wanted to kill Gwen in the dream. The two played hide-and-seek in the huge empty house. Bill quickly found Gwen and slashed her. At the same time, Ernie noticed that Gwen's arm was bleeding. This meant that if Gwen died in the dream, she might also die in reality. In the nick of time, the boy in yellow, Felix, opened the door in time and rescued Gwen. His sudden appearance was because Mando had been searching on the lake all night despite the cold winter, and had actually found Felix's body. Mando immediately took out tools to chisel the ice. Bill would certainly not stand by and do nothing. He ran behind Mando and smashed the ice. Gwen wanted to warn Mando to be careful, but was trapped in the phone booth by Bill. In the next second, the ice under Mando's feet cracked, and he fell into the lake, which was several degrees below zero. Bill stepped on Mando to prevent him from climbing up. Gwen had to smash the glass with all her strength. In no time, Her fists were covered in blood and flesh. Soon, Bill appeared out of nowhere and punched through the glass. He pulled out the phone cord, strangled Gwen, and suddenly lifted her high into the air. Gwen's real body on the bed jumped along with her. Bill took the chance to yank the phone cord sharply. Gwen spun around in place like a yo-yo. Mustang quickly fetched a bucket of water and splashed it on Gwen's face. Finney also shouted her name frantically. Gwen couldn't help but remember her brother's words. "You're the master of your dream." She made the phone booth explode on the spot, then stepped forward and grabbed Bill off the ground. "I chose to come here, and I can leave any time I want." In the next second, Gwen woke up from the dream and hurriedly told her brother to save Mando. Luckily, he hadn't drowned yet. Even after being pulled out of the water, he didn't forget to say, "I found Felix." But before dawn, the siblings' father Mike arrived at the camp. He had found an icebreaker and wanted to take the children home as soon as possible, but Gwen refused to leave until all the boys were found. But neither her brother nor her father would listen to her. Gwen simply told them what she had seen in her dreams. Mom didn't commit suicide at all. She dreamed of a missing child, and accidentally found out Bill was a serial killer, so she was silenced. At first, Mike didn't believe his daughter, but Gwen repeated word for word what he had said when he found his wife's body. Now Mike had to believe that Gwen's dreams were real. Early the next morning, everyone continued searching at Maru Lake, but night fell quickly, and the other two boys still hadn't been found. Gwen fell asleep on a chair. At this point, Bill skated through the snow fog, holding an axe tightly in his hand. Gwen jumped into the water. The unlucky Kenneth was struck down by Bill's axe and slid rapidly across the ice. When everyone saw this, they immediately realized Bill had arrived. At this point, he waved his hand and let Kenneth go. The man crashed into Barbara, breaking her nose. Bill took off half his mask and charged at them with all his strength. A long trail of scratches appeared on the ice. Kenneth and Barbara felt a sudden cold on their foreheads, and warm blood began to flow out. At the same time, Gwen under the ice found half a skeleton hidden in an iron bucket. She struggled to push the iron bucket toward the lake's surface. Mike sensed something and was about to jump into the water to help, but saw the ice skate marks sliding straight toward his son.
How the tables have turned.
Finney had been able to kill the grabber 4 years ago, and he certainly wouldn't admit defeat 4 years later. He kicked Bill away. Mike also helped Gwen pull the iron bucket ashore, and sure enough, there was a body inside. At this point, Gwen walked bravely toward Bill. Now she had reliable friends to help her. Every time Bill tried to get close to Gwen, he was pulled down by the bones in the iron bucket. The three boys who were victimized blocked his way. Gwen struck an axe into Bill's forehead. She roughly tore off the coward's mask. To put it bluntly, Bill was just a coward who hid behind a mask to hurt children. This time, there was no way for him to escape. Finney grabbed Bill's head and slammed it into the ice. The siblings dismembered him and threw the pieces into the lake. Just as Bill had said before, hell wasn't fire, but ice. Nothing burns a person more than ice. Then Gwen closed her eyes and woke up in her own body. This tragedy finally came to an end. Mando called the three boys' parents, planning to send the deceased back to where they belonged. As for the day the siblings left the camp, the phone booth rang again.
Hi, sweetie.
Mom?
Yeah, baby. But you did so well. You saved those boys.
The story ends here. Putting the story itself aside, the audio-visual effects of this film are truly outstanding. A lot of grainy, distorted lenses are used to show Gwen's dreams connected to reality. Illogical and fragmented editing creates a black hole-like emptiness. It shatters the subjectivity of watching, making people feel doubly lost and frightened. The downside is that the plot itself is simply not enough to support the whole film. It essentially tells the story of how the main characters face trauma and fear and grow from it. As a sequel, it may not have many surprises. The actors' performances are also quite inexperienced. Luckily, the interspersed bloody scenes are quite intense, and several of the fight scenes are very exciting.